At each of the remaining Grand Prix in the 1983 season, we're going to bring you an in-depth interview with one of the central characters involved in current-day Formula One Grand Prix racing. The world champion, Keke Rosberg, is somewhat of a controversial character, so we chose to speak to him.
We're with Keke Rosberg, the current world champion in Formula One. Keke, you have a great deal of experience racing in the United States. How do you compare racing in North America and the racing here in Europe?
Well, I suppose you have to compare similar levels of motor racing than what I did in the States. I think the big difference is the safety standards of the racetracks are much higher in Europe. I think basically there is just more money in road racing in Europe than there is in America, surprisingly. So therefore the tracks are, I would say, more modern over here. Competition is the same over there than it is here. I mean, there's not much difference on that, although I would say on Formula racing front it's a bit more professional on average on a same level in Europe than it is in the States. But the Atlantic Series, like what I did in America, were obviously very competitive, very professional over there.
Keke, how do you feel the safety is in Formula One at the moment? Can you see anything that you'd like to improve?
The safety in Formula One is very good at the moment. The regulations that got changed, the cars got slowed down from last year, made a big improvement on them. It still doesn't necessarily mean I'm a big fan of it, of those changes, but yes, Formula One is very safe at the moment.
Keke, you are one of the drivers who is without turbo power at the moment, and I've never seen you drive harder. What's it like to have all that hard driving in the corners be eaten up down the straightaways?
Well, that's the way Formula One is at the moment. It's a technical sport, and you're always looking for a technical advantage over the others. Well, this time, me and my team, we've been left behind, and the others have the advantage. It's normally motor racing. It is frustrating, but next year the situation will be different. Next year, everybody will have a turbo in Formula One, and then they'll be back to old days again.
We understand that you've told Frank Williams that you won't be racing with him unless he does have a turbo. What's the current situation on the Williams team getting a turbocharged engine?
Well, actually, I never had to tell that to Frank. It is quite obvious that that is the case. But Frank has signed a contract with an engine manufacturer for next year. It hasn't been announced yet who it is. It will be in its due time. So Williams definitely will be using turbo engine next year.
Now, in the past, it's been said that some world champions have lost their competitive desire after they've achieved their lifelong goal, but that doesn't seem true for you.
No, my lifelong goal wasn't to win 1 world championships or 17 world championships. My goal is every season is going to be the same, do the very best you can, and if it brings you the championship once, twice, 3 times, 14 times, great. If it doesn't, you still know you've done the best possible you could.
The pit stop situation in Formula One now, do you think it's a good thing or do you think it's not so good?
Oh, two point of views, obviously. One is the spectator's point of view, which I think for the spectator is very confusing. One is driver's point of view. A driver will say it's a great thing if he gets an advantage out of it. He says it's a bad thing if he loses through that. Quite obvious. I don't think it's good for spectators. I don't care if I do a pit stop or not. If I game for that, I do a pit stop because everybody else does. I have to do. For me, it doesn't really make any difference.
What do you enjoy about a Grand Prix weekend the most?
The driving. I still like to develop the end product, set up my car as well as possible, and the pure driving itself gives me immense pleasure, maybe more than ever so.